You were a mistake. My father's voice was cold as ice as he stood in the doorway of my childhood bedroom. We never wanted you, and now that you're 18, we're done pretending. My suitcase hit the front porch moments later, followed by 2 garbage bags containing everything I owned. My mother stood behind him, her face blank, not even bothering to look at me. No tears, no apology, just cold dismissal on my 18th birthday. My name is Jordan Hayes, and I'd always known something was wrong. While my older brother Kyle got praise and attention, I got silence and disappointment. While he got a new car for his 18th birthday, I got evicted from my own home. But where am I supposed to go? I asked, my voice shaking. That's not our problem anymore, Dad replied. Kyle is our real child, our planned child. You were an accident we tolerated for 18 years. Now you're an adult. Figure it out. The door slammed in my face, and I heard the lock click. I stood there on the porch of the house I'd grown up in, suddenly homeless on a cold March evening. I called my best friend Casey, who picked me up an hour later. Her parents let me sleep on their couch that night, but I knew I couldn't stay long. I had exactly $300 in my bank account from my part-time job at the grocery store. Your parents are monsters, Casey said, handing me a blanket. Who throws out their own kid? People who never wanted that kid in the first place, I whispered, trying not to cry. I'd overheard conversations throughout my childhood. How Mom had gotten pregnant with me right after Kyle was born, how they'd considered abortion but decided against it because of family pressure, how I'd ruined their financial plans and forced them to delay their dream of opening a second location of their business. Hayes Hospitality Group owned 3 luxury hotels in our city. Dad had started with 1 hotel, then expanded. Kyle was being groomed to take over the empire. I wasn't even allowed to work there during summers. Dad said I'd embarrass the family. The next morning, I went to my high school counselor, Mrs. Patterson. She'd always been kind to me, one of the few adults who seemed to notice I existed. Jordan, I'm so sorry, she said when I explained my situation. Her eyes filled with tears. This is unconscious. But I can help. There's an emergency fund for students in crisis, and I know someone who runs a youth shelter. She made some calls while I sat there, numb. By afternoon, I had a bed at a transitional housing facility for young adults and an application for emergency financial aid for college. You're a straight-A student, Mrs. Patterson reminded me. You have a full scholarship to State University starting in the fall. Don't let this destroy your future. But fall was 6 months away. I needed to survive until then. I needed a job, a real one, not just part-time grocery store work. I needed to prove that I wasn't a mistake, that I could build something from nothing. That night at the shelter, I made a promise to myself. Someday, I would own something bigger than my parents ever dreamed of. I found a full-time job at a downtown hotel called the Sterling, working night shifts at the front desk. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid $12 an hour and let me work while taking online classes to graduate high school early. The manager, Mr. Torres, was a kind man in his 50s who reminded me of the grandfather I'd never had. When I explained I was staying at a youth shelter, he didn't judge me. Everyone's got a story, he said. What matters is what you do with it. You show up on time, work hard, treat guests with respect, and you'll go far in this industry. I threw myself into the work. I memorized every guest's name, anticipated their needs, learned everything I could about hotel operations. When Mr. Torres realized how interested I was, he started teaching me about the business side, occupancy rates, revenue management, customer service strategies. You've got a natural talent for this, he told me one night. Ever thought about hospitality management as a career? I had. Every single day since my parents threw me out, I thought about it. 3 months later, I graduated high school early and enrolled at State University's hospitality management program. I moved into a tiny studio apartment, barely bigger than a closet, but it was mine. I paid for it with my hotel wages and student loans, working 40 hours a week while carrying a full course load. My parents never called. Never checked if I was alive or dead. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard that they'd told people I'd run away, that I was rebellious and ungrateful. They played the victims perfectly. Kyle called once. Hey, so, Dad's pretty mad at you for leaving like that. You should apologize. I didn't leave. They threw me out. Yeah, well, you kind of forced their hand by being difficult all the time. Anyway, I'm going to be VP of Operations at Hayes Hospitality next month. Pretty cool, right? I hung up on him. He'd always gotten everything, their love, their money, their business. And he had no idea how lucky he was. At State University, I met Professor Williams, who'd spent 30 years in luxury hospitality before becoming a teacher. She saw something in me, the same hunger Mr. Torres had recognized. You work at the Sterling? She asked after class one day. That's a well-run property. You're learning from good people. I told her my story. Not the whole thing, but enough. How I was paying my own way, how I wanted to build something in this industry, how I refused to be defined by where I came from. Jordan, I'm going to be blunt, she said. You have more drive and natural ability than 90% of the students I've taught. But this industry is about relationships and capital. You need both to succeed. She introduced me to people, hotel owners, investors, industry leaders. She invited me to conferences I couldn't afford and put my name forward for competitive internships. She became my mentor, the parent figure I'd never had. Why are you helping me? I asked her once. Because someone helped me once when I had nothing. I'm paying it forward. By my junior year of college, I'd been promoted to night manager at the Sterling. Mr. Torres was preparing to retire, and he was training me to potentially take over. I was 20 years old, managing a staff of 15, and loving every minute of it. I'd also started saving aggressively. Every extra dollar went into a savings account. I had a plan forming in my mind, vague still, but growing clearer. I wanted my own hotel someday. Something small to start, but mine. Then I got a call from someone I never expected. My mother. Jordan, we need to talk, she said, her voice tight. It's about the family business. My heart raced. After 3 years of silence, now she wanted to talk? What about it? Kyle's made some poor decisions. The business is struggling. Your father thinks. Well, we thought maybe you could help. You're studying hospitality management, aren't you? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They'd thrown me out, called me a mistake, and now they wanted help? No, I said simply and hung up. Professor Williams helped me understand what was really happening. Through her industry contacts, she learned that Hayes Hospitality was in serious financial trouble. Kyle had convinced Dad to expand too quickly, opening 2 new hotels without proper capital. They were over-leveraged and struggling with occupancy rates. They're going to come after you again, Professor Williams warned. When people are desperate, they do desperate things. She was right. Dad showed up at the Sterling one night, walking into the lobby like he owned the place. I was at the front desk, and when I saw him, my whole body went cold. Jordan, we need to talk, he said, not even greeting me properly. I'm working. You need to leave. Don't be childish. I'm your father. You were my father until you threw me out 3 years ago and called me a mistake. Now you're just a stranger who needs something from me. His face turned red. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head. You owe us. Mr. Torres appeared from the back office. Is there a problem, Jordan? Dad tried to intimidate Mr. Torres, pulling the successful businessman routine. But Mr. Torres had dealt with difficult people his entire career and wasn't impressed. Sir, you need to leave now, or I'll call security, Mr. Torres said calmly. After Dad left, I sat in the back office, shaking. Mr. Torres brought me water and sat down across from me. That was your father? He asked gently. I nodded, unable to speak. The same one who kicked you out at 18? He needs help with his business. It's failing because my brother is incompetent. Now suddenly, I'm family again. Mr. Torres was quiet for a moment. Jordan, I'm going to tell you something I learned the hard way. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up for you. Who believed in you when you had nothing. That's your real family. He was right. Professor Williams, Casey, Mr. Torres himself, they'd been more family to me than my parents ever were. Don't let them use you, he continued. You're building something good here. Don't let them poison it. I wouldn't. I had my own plans. I graduated summa cum laude at 21 with a degree in hospitality management and a minor in business. Professor Williams and Mr. Torres threw me a small party at the Sterling. Casey came with her parents, who'd been more supportive of me than my own family ever was. My parents didn't attend. They didn't even know I was graduating. The day after graduation, I got a job offer that changed everything. The Sterling's parent company wanted to promote me to assistant general manager of their flagship property downtown, a significant step up with a salary of $60,000 a year. But Professor Williams had another offer for me. I have a friend, Marcus Webb, who owns a small boutique hotel that's struggling, she explained. It's a beautiful historic property, but it needs fresh management and ideas. He's looking for a general manager. The salary is only $45,000. But he's offering a small equity stake, 5% ownership if you can turn it around within 3 years. 5% ownership. It wasn't much, but it was a start. A chance to own something, to build equity, to begin my own empire. I took the job at the boutique hotel, the Grandview. It was a gorgeous 1920s building with 50 rooms, but it was only running at 30% occupancy. The previous manager had let standards slip, and the property had gained a reputation for poor service. Marcus Webb was a quiet investor in his 60s who'd made his money in real estate. He'd bought the Grandview 5 years ago as a passion project, but didn't have the hospitality expertise to run it properly. I'm giving you complete operational control, he told me on my first day. Turn this place around, and that 5% is yours. Fail, and I'll have to sell it at a loss. The pressure was enormous. But I thrived on it. I'd spent my whole life proving I wasn't a mistake. This was just another chance to prove it. I started by retraining the staff, implementing new service standards, upgrading the rooms on a tight budget, and rebuilding relationships with local businesses for corporate bookings. I worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week, treating this hotel like it was already mine. Because someday it would be. Within 6 months, occupancy was up to 55%. Within a year, we were at 70% and turning a profit for the first time in 3 years. Marcus was thrilled. You're a miracle worker, he said, reviewing the quarterly reports. I've had offers to buy this place, but I'm holding on to it because of what you're building. By year 2, we were consistently at 85% occupancy and had won several local awards for customer service. I built a team of dedicated employees who shared my vision for excellence. We weren't just running a hotel, we were creating experiences. Professor Williams visited often, watching my progress with pride. You're going to own this whole industry someday, she said. I've never seen anyone with your combination of talent and determination. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon in my 3rd year at the Grandview, I got a call that made my blood run cold. Jordan. It's Kyle. I almost hung up, but curiosity stopped me. Hayes Hospitality is bankrupt, he said without preamble. We're losing everything. The banks are foreclosing. Dad had a heart attack last week from the stress. I should have felt satisfaction. They'd thrown me out, called me a mistake, and now their empire was crumbling. But all I felt was empty. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. But I don't know why you're calling me. Mom thought, we thought maybe you could help. You're doing well at that hotel you manage, right? Maybe you could talk to your boss, see if he'd be interested in buying one of our properties at a discount? We need to liquidate fast. The audacity was stunning. They wanted me to help them sell off their failing business after everything they'd done to me. Kyle, let me be very clear. You and our parents threw me out with nothing. You told me I was a mistake. You never checked if I was alive or dead. And now you want me to save you. Come on, Jordan. We're family. No, we're not. Family doesn't abandon each other. You made your choice 3 years ago. Now live with it. I hung up and immediately called Marcus. How much would it cost to buy a distressed hotel property? Marcus understood immediately. You want to buy one of your family's hotels at the bankruptcy auction? I want to buy all of them. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. That's not revenge, Jordan. That's good business. Those are quality properties in prime locations. If they're being mismanaged, they're probably undervalued. We spent the next week analyzing Hayes Hospitality's properties. 3 hotels, all in excellent locations, all running at low occupancy due to poor management and Kyle's expansion mistakes. At auction, they'd probably sell for 60 cents on the dollar. I have investors who'd be interested, Marcus said. We could form a partnership. You'd run the properties, turn them around like you did the Grandview. In exchange for your management expertise and sweat equity, you'd get 25% ownership of the portfolio. 25% ownership of 3 hotels. It was more than I'd dreamed of. But here's the thing, Marcus continued. If we do this, you need to be ready for your family to know you're involved. Can you handle that? I thought about my father standing in the Sterling's lobby, demanding my help. I thought about my mother's cold dismissal on my 18th birthday. I thought about Kyle's pitying phone call, still not understanding what he'd done wrong. I can handle it, I said. The bankruptcy auction was held 6 weeks later. Marcus assembled a group of investors, himself, Professor Williams, who'd been quietly investing her professor's salary for decades, and 2 other hospitality professionals. Together, they formed Hayes Properties LLC, with me as the operating partner and future general manager. We bid on all 3 properties. The first went for $1.2 million. Marcus and Professor Williams split it. The second went for $1.5 million. The other investors covered it. The third, the flagship property where my father's office had been, went for $1.8 million. We won all 3. For $4.5 million, we'd acquired properties worth at least $7 million at market value. I was 24 years old and part owner of a hotel portfolio that included the very building my father had once refused to let me work in. The local business newspaper ran a story, "Young hotelier acquires Hayes Hospitality properties in bankruptcy auction." My name was printed in bold. Jordan Hayes, operating partner of Hayes Properties LLC. My mother called within hours. "Jordan, what have you done?" "I bought your failed business, Mom." "Well, helped buy it. I'm going to turn it around and make it profitable again." Something Kyle couldn't do. "Those hotels are your father's legacy." "No, they're my legacy now." Dad's legacy was throwing out his own child. I hung up before she could respond. There was too much work to do to waste time on old wounds. Taking over the 3 former Hayes Hospitality properties was like stepping into a disaster zone. The staff was demoralized, maintenance had been deferred, service standards had collapsed. Kyle had cut corners everywhere to try to save money, which only made things worse. I brought in my team from the Grandview to help with the transition. We spent the first month just assessing the damage and creating a turnaround plan. Marcus gave me complete operational authority. I could hire, fire, and make any changes necessary. "These are your hotels to save or lose," he told me. "The investors trust you. Don't let us down." I started with the staff. I held meetings at all 3 properties, explaining the new vision and standards. Some employees were relieved to have competent leadership again. Others, who'd been Kyle's friends and had enjoyed the lax standards, quit. Good riddance. I replaced them with trained professionals who understood excellence. The flagship property, which I renamed the Heritage, became my focus. It was the most valuable and the most damaged by Kyle's mismanagement. 6 months into the turnaround, I was working 20-hour days, splitting time between all 3 properties. Professor Williams worried I was burning out, But I couldn't stop. Every improved review, every uptick in occupancy, every dollar of profit felt like vindication. I wasn't a mistake. I was capable of running circles around the planned child my parents had favored. The heritage was particularly satisfying to restore. I gutted my father's old office and turned it into a beautiful library lounge for guests. Where his ego had lived, I created something that served others. One evening, I was at the Heritage's front desk, filling in for a sick employee, when I saw someone I never expected walk through the door. My father. He looked older, grayer, diminished somehow. He walked to the desk, saw me, and stopped dead in his tracks. "Jordan," he said, his voice weak. "Good evening, sir. Do you have a reservation? Don't do this. Don't treat me like a stranger. But that's what you made me. A stranger. You threw me out, remember? Called me a mistake." Dad's face crumpled. "I came to apologize. And to ask you to meet with your mother and me. Please." I studied him for a long moment. The man who'd slammed the door in my face on my 18th birthday now stood in the lobby of what had once been his hotel, begging his mistake for a meeting. "Why should I?" I asked. "Because I was wrong. Because your mother and I were cruel and stupid. Because we threw away our own child and we can't live with that anymore." His voice broke. "I had a heart attack, Jordan. Lying in that hospital bed, I realized I'd lost everything that actually mattered. The business, the money, none of it meant anything. But I'd lost you, and that was my fault. I wanted to feel triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. Dad, I'm not sure an apology fixes 18 years of neglect followed by being thrown out like garbage. I know. But I have to try. Please, just meet with us once. Hear what we have to say." Against my better judgment, I agreed to dinner that Friday. The dinner was at a quiet restaurant downtown. My parents looked older and smaller than I remembered. Mom's hair had gone gray, and Dad moved slowly, still recovering from his heart attack. "Thank you for coming," Mom said, her voice trembling. "We weren't sure you would." I almost didn't. We sat in uncomfortable silence until the waiter took our orders. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Jordan, there's no excuse for what we did to you. We were cruel, selfish people who made a child feel unwanted for 18 years and then abandoned that child completely." "That's an accurate summary," I said coldly. "After you left, we convinced ourselves we'd done the right thing," Mom continued. "We told ourselves you were difficult, that you'd be better off on your own. We lied to everyone about what happened. We lied to ourselves. You threw me out on my 18th birthday with 2 garbage bags and $300, I said, my voice shaking despite my efforts to stay calm. "Do you have any idea what that was like?" They both started crying. "We know we can't fix what we did," Dad said through tears. "We know you probably hate us, and you have every right to. But we wanted you to know that we see now how wrong we were. Kyle is a good kid, but he's not you. He never had your drive, your intelligence, your strength. We favored him because he was easy, comfortable. You challenged us, and we resented that." "You resented me for existing," I corrected. "Yes," Mom whispered. "And we were horrible parents because of it. When we lost the business, when everything fell apart, we finally understood. We'd had 2 children and thrown away the one who was truly special." I sat there, not knowing what to feel. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let them suffer as I'd suffered. But another part, the part that had spent 4 years proving I wasn't a mistake, wanted something else. "I don't forgive you," I said finally. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did was unforgivable." "We understand," Dad said. "But I also don't want to spend my life being angry. I've built something good out of the worst thing you ever did to me. I'm successful, happy, and surrounded by people who actually care about me." "We heard about you buying the hotels," Mom said. "The business section called you a rising star in hospitality. You're doing what we could never do." I'm doing what you refused to teach me to do, I corrected. I learned from people who actually believed in me. Mr. Torres, Professor Williams, Marcus Webb, they saw potential in me when you saw a burden. We know. And we're proud of you, even though we have no right to be. The waiter brought our food, but none of us were eating. The weight of 4 years of silence sat heavily over the table. What do you want from me? I asked bluntly. Why this apology now? Dad and Mom exchanged glances. We don't want anything from you, Dad said. We wanted you to know we're sorry. That's all. You don't want money? Help with your debts? A job at one of the hotels I now own. No, Mom said firmly. We don't deserve your help. We just wanted you to know that we see our mistakes, and we're trying to be better people. It was the last thing I expected. I'd prepared for them to beg, to manipulate, to try to use me. Instead, they were simply acknowledging their failures. Over the next few months, we began a slow, painful process of rebuilding some kind of relationship. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was communication. They came to one of my hotels for Sunday brunch occasionally. We talked about neutral topics at first, then gradually about harder things. Kyle's working at a hotel in another state, Dad told me one Sunday. Entry-level position. He needs to learn the business the right way, the way you did. We realized we did him no favors by handing him everything. How's he handling it? I asked. Not well, Mom admitted. He's angry at us for not supporting him anymore. He thinks we chose you over him. You didn't choose me. You're just finally seeing reality. You're right, Dad said. We enabled Kyle and crushed you. We did everything wrong with both of you. The hotels were thriving under my management. Within 2 years of the acquisition, all 3 properties were running at over 80% occupancy and turning healthy profits. Marcus and the other investors were thrilled. You've tripled our investment, Marcus told me, reviewing the quarterly reports. I think it's time we discussed your equity stake. Marcus called a meeting with all the investors. Professor Williams was there, beaming with pride. The other investors I'd only met a few times but who'd trusted me with their money. Jordan, when we formed this partnership, we promised you 25% equity if you successfully turned around the properties, Marcus began. You've exceeded every expectation. All 3 hotels are profitable, highly rated, and growing in value. He slid a folder across the table. We're formalizing your ownership stake. 25% of Hayes Properties LLC is now officially yours. I opened the folder and saw the legal documents. My name listed as part owner of properties worth an estimated $9 million. My share was worth over $2 million. At 26 years old, I was a millionaire. The mistake child who'd been thrown out with garbage bags was now a successful hotel owner. There's one more thing, Professor Williams said, smiling. Marcus is retiring next year. The investors have voted to make you the managing partner of Hayes Properties LLC. You'll have operational control of the entire portfolio. I couldn't speak. Tears streamed down my face. You earned this, Jordan, Marcus said gently. Every single bit of it. That evening, I called my parents and asked them to meet me at the Heritage. They arrived nervous, probably wondering what I wanted. I gave them a tour of the hotel they'd once owned and lost. Showed them the improvements, the 5-star reviews, the staff who respected me. Then I took them to the library lounge that used to be Dad's office. I wanted you to see what I built, I said. Not to rub it in your face, but because I need you to understand something. They sat down, waiting. When you threw me out, you told me I was a mistake. You made me believe I was worthless, unwanted, a burden. I spent 18 years feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. Mom started crying. Dad looked at the floor. But you were wrong. I wasn't a mistake. I was a person with potential that you were too blind to see. Every single person who actually believed in me, Mr. Torres, Professor Williams, Marcus, even Casey's parents, they saw what you couldn't see. We know, Dad whispered. We were terrible parents. Yes, you were. But here's what I realized. Your failure to see my worth doesn't define my worth. I built this despite you, not because of you. I pulled out the ownership documents and showed them to my parents. I own 25% of these 3 hotels. The properties you lost are now mine. In a few years, I'll own even more. By the time I'm 30, I'll probably own this entire chain and more. Dad looked at the papers, his hands shaking. Jordan, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand what you threw away when you called me a mistake. You didn't just lose a child. You lost someone who could have taken your business to heights you never imagined. We know, Mom said through tears. We see that now. Good. Because I need you to know that I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your love or your acceptance. I have people who give me those things freely. But I'm willing to let you be part of my life on my terms if you can accept who I am, a successful hotel owner who built an empire from nothing. They both nodded, unable to speak. I stood up. I have a meeting with investors in 20 minutes. But we can have brunch again next Sunday if you want. As I walked away, I heard my father say to my mother, "That's our child. And we almost destroyed them." I kept walking, not looking back. I'd spent too many years looking back at what they'd done to me. Now I was looking forward at what I was building. My parents had called me a mistake and thrown me out. Some years later, I became an owner of the empire they'd lost. But the real victory wasn't owning the hotels. The real victory was knowing I'd never been a mistake at all. I'd always been exactly who I was meant to be, successful, strong, and unbreakable. They just couldn't see it until I proved them wrong. And that was the best revenge of all.